Arv Aronson of the Total Sports Recall podcast here to share a winning strategy for Mother's Day from our partners at Sterling Roastery. Behind every legendary athlete is a support system that never quits, and for most of us, that's Mom. This Mother's Day, give her a morning ritual that's as consistent as her support. Sterling Roastery coffee is sourced from around the world and roasted multiple times a week to ensure unbeatable freshness in every cup. Instead of a one-time gift, draft a winning team for her kitchen with a Sterling coffee subscription. It's the warm-up she deserves, delivered straight to her door. From the very first whistle of the day to the final buzzer, let her wake up, warm up, and Sterling up. Visit sterlingsoap.com to start her subscription today. That's STIRLING soap.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
He hit perhaps the greatest home run in World Series history. In fact, it's the only walk-off home run in the bottom of the ninth in Game 7 history. He was not your stereotypical offensive star, but with the glove, there was no one better. And next, on Sports Forgotten Heroes, we'll take a look back at the career of Hall of Fame second baseman Bill Mazeroski.
This is Sports Forgotten Heroes, a tribute to the stars who shaped the games we love to watch and the games we love to play. Stars who provided us with many thrills, but when their time was up, they faded away. We'll take a look back at their spectacular careers, their moments of fame, even if it was just for one season or just one game. And now, here's your host, Warren Rogan.
Hello and welcome to Sports Forgotten Heroes, episode number 165, Bill Mazeroski. Now, not too long ago, February 20th, 2026, we lost a great one when Maz passed away at the age of 89. To those not familiar with Maz and who more recently marveled at the exploits of Ozzie Smith, who was one of the greatest shortstops of all time, that's the type of player Mazeroski was. Good with the bat, but great with the glove. And when I say great, it's not an overstatement. Mazeroski, who came up with the Pirates in 1956 and played 17 years, won 8 Gold Gloves, was an All-Star 7 times, and holds the record for most double plays turned with 1,706. He led the National League in turning double plays 8 straight years, led the NL in assists 9 times, putouts 5 times, and is the all-time leader in total zone, total fielding runs above average, which is the number of runs above or below average a player is worth based on the number of plays made. It's a mouthful. But for a better explanation, check out baseballreference.com. Simply stated, though, Mazeroski was one of the greats. Of course, he is best known for the home run he hit in the bottom of the ninth of the 7th game of the 1960 World Series against the New York Yankees at Forbes Field to win the World Series for the Pirates. By far, one of the greatest home runs in baseball history and one of the most iconic moments in Pittsburgh sports history. Joining me on today's show is Arv Aronson, host of the Total Sports Recall podcast and a lifelong fan of the Pittsburgh Pirates. We'll talk about that home run, Maz's career, his controversial Hall of Fame induction, and a lot more. Before we get there, a few notes. Please follow Sports Forgotten Heroes on X at SportsFHeroes. Look for the Sports Forgotten Heroes page on Facebook, and wherever it is you are listening or watching, please give Sports Forgotten Heroes a like, and if you can, a 5-star rating and review. As always, I thank you for your support. Also, I am thrilled to announce the publication of my first book, College All-Stars vs. NFL Champions, the Chicago Charities Football Games 1934 to 1976. This book takes a look back at the history of the series where a team of college football all-stars took on the defending NFL champions every year from 1934 until 1976. You can pick up a copy on Amazon or straight from the publisher, McFarlandBooks.com. That's McFarland, McFarland, books.com. And hey, if you want more information about the book or a signed copy, please send me an email to sportsfh.info@gmail.com. That's sportsfh.info@gmail.com, and I'll share with you how we can make it happen. Okay, let's get to today's show about Bill Mazeroski with my guest, Harv Aronson. And joining the show now, from Total Sports Recall, Harv Aronson. Harv, great to have you on Sports Forgotten Heroes.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Warren, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. We're going to talk about someone I know very close to your heart, the great Bill Mazeroski, who unfortunately we lost just a short time ago. Where does your fandom for Bill come from?
Well, obviously, growing up in Pittsburgh, I was 1 year old when the 1960 World Series took place. So, of course, I wouldn't remember that. But growing up a Pittsburgh Pirates fan, I mean, you know all about the 1960 World Series. And fortunately, I got to see him play in the 1971 World Series. So I was a little older then, and I do remember that series. But I actually think my mother met him once. She said he was such a gentleman, signed his autograph. But I mean, he's a hero in Pittsburgh, always was, always will be. And everybody quite remembers well the 1960 World Series and how that ended.
It's funny you say that you're a Pirates fan and you don't recall the 1960 series because, you know,
1 year old is kind of tough.
Yeah. That's sort of like me as a Mets fan. It's actually pretty cruel because I can remember almost everything about 1970 between the Orioles and the Reds. I can remember almost everything about 1971 between the Pirates and the Orioles. And then, of course, we get into the great Oakland Athletic teams of 72, 3, and 4. I have no recollection whatsoever of 1969, the greatest year in the history of the Mets. That's a pretty
one heck of a comeback on their part.
Yeah. You know, when people hear the name Bill Mazeroski, they immediately think of one swing, and you know, it's pretty fair that they do. But is it fair when you consider the rest of his career?
No, not at all. I mean, there's all kinds of records he has. He was a 10-time All-Star, played his entire career with the Pirates. Fantastic defensive second baseman, one of the best ever. In fact, I think he is the all-time leader in turning double plays at second base. So he was just a fantastic fielder, great glove, and he was an above-average hitter. But you know, he was a contact hitter, and sure enough, in 1960, he made contact at the right time. And to this day, that's the only ninth inning walk-off home run in the World Series to win the World Series. So he holds that
bottom of the ninth, seventh game.
Yeah, exactly. Seventh game walk-off, only time in history. So yeah, he was just a great second baseman.
Yeah, because he's a Hall of Famer, but when you look at his numbers, he's not in the Hall of Fame necessarily because of what he did at the plate. He's in the Hall of Fame because of what he did in the field. Gold Glove in 58, Gold Glove in 1960, 61, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. I mean, this guy was just a phenomenal fielder. So before we get to 1960, tell us who Bill Mazeroski was as a player when he first arrived in Pittsburgh? What did the Pirates organization see in him early that made them believe he could be someone special and really hold down second base for such a long period of time?
Well, it's got to be his defensive prowess. I mean, he was just such a fantastic defensive second baseman, and who wouldn't want an infielder that had a glove like that? And, in combination with Gene Alley for the longest time, those two just made a great double play duo, and they were teammates for quite a long time. In 1966, he turned 161 double plays, and that remains the major league record for second baseman to this day. And when he retired, he held the top three marks in the National League history for fielding. He led the major leagues in assists a record 9 times. He led the National League in putouts 5 times. He was an 8-time Gold Glove Award winner. What more can you say? It's just that, Hall of Fame is not always about just offensive stats. And Ozzie Smith is proof of that as well. He was probably one of the best defensive shortstops in history.
What do you think made him so special as a second baseman? What was it in his style of play? Where did he learn to play the game like that? Because if I recall, he didn't get to play all that much as a youth, because of his family situation. I think his dad, in fact, had might have had a professional career, but had a coal mining accident, and that sort of steered him away from baseball. But they were not affluent, to say the least, and it took quite some time for Bill to find the money or earn the money to go out and buy a baseball glove.
Yeah, and you're right. His father had a tryout with the Cleveland Indians, but because of a coal mining accident, that kind of destroyed any chances he had for a baseball career. But Mazeroski, he was raised in Tiltonsville, Ohio, and he wasn't just a baseball player. He was a very, very outstanding basketball player, for those who didn't know. And he had been courted by the Indians, the Red Sox, White Sox, the Phillies. But he decided to go with the Pirates because they decided to push him up in the minor leagues a lot faster than maybe some of the other teams would have. But they noticed his glove. And I know I heard a story recently about how he was teaching somebody like tricks what to do with your glove, how to be a really good fielder. So he had that knack, or just natural instinct, to be a good defensive player.
Tough question for you, Harv. How revolutionary was his defensive style for that era? What separated him from other second basemen? When we look at the game today, it's obvious when you talk about a guy like Shohei Ohtani and what separates him from every other ball player on the planet. Aaron Judge, what separates him from virtually every other ball player on the planet is his power is phenomenal. What is it about, or what was it about Mazeroski's defensive style for that era? Was he ahead of the game? What was it?
Well, I think, baseball is much different now than it was back then. The money has changed the game. The salaries have changed the game. And I don't think these guys are as passionate about the game itself as they were back then. And I'm an old school guy. I love baseball for history back then and even way before I was born, because they loved the game. And he was a hard worker. I mean, he worked at his fielding, and he would go out there and practice. And his teammate, the great one, Roberto Clemente, unfortunately, he's not with us anymore either, but I understand there were stories about him going out to Forbes Field on non-game days, and he would have somebody throw the ball off the wall with his back to the plate, and then learn how to throw directly to home plate. And that's what, with his rocket arm, but it just became an instinct for him. And the whole team was like that. They worked hard. Mazeroski worked hard at his skill and his craft. And so that set him apart.
Earlier you mentioned that he holds the record for most double plays in a season with 161. I mean, that's like a double play every single game. And that year he happened to play in 162 games. But if you look at it, where, he led the National League in double plays starting in 1960 through 1967 every single year. 127, 144, 138, 131, 122, 113, 161, 131. I mean, phenomenal. And I read somewhere that teams feared his ability to turn a double play. I sort of liken it to football where, teams scheme to run away from people. Teams scheme to against the other team's defense or offense in a particular way. Can you explain, or is it possible to explain his double play ability and why it was, dare I say, feared by opposing teams?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you knew as a batter you were hitting to the right side of the field, you better have a good shot away from Mazeroski because he could cover the field. So to get a ball past him was very difficult, and you knew that he knew how to turn the double plays. So if you got a man on base and you're hitting at Mazeroski, you better count on the fact that you've just grounded into a double play. He covered the field very well. And you wouldn't think of him like an Ozzie Smith, who was just so athletic and covered the field like unbelievably. But Mazeroski, even despite his body frame and everything else, he was just a fantastic defensive player. He knew how to field. And there's another number I was going to throw out there is that Joe Morgan eventually passed him up, but he is second all-time history in the fielding percentage. And Mazeroski's number ended up at 983. I mean, that's just a crazy number to think of that. At 983, that's like making hardly any errors. It's unbelievable.
Like you said, the game is different today than it was back then. But I don't know, again, if you can answer this, how do modern defensive metrics view Mazeroski compared to his contemporaries?
Yeah, I don't look at statistics that much. I mean, there's so many baseball statistics now. It's half of them I don't even know what they mean. When I was growing up, it was you're looking at at-bats, runs, hits, average, home runs, stolen bases, triples, RBIs, and from the offensive side. Now they've got so many numbers, and half of them I don't even understand. The WAR and the OPS and all this other stuff. And it's hard to say. Comparing stats today versus stats back then.
Well, he does have, like you said, the career record for double plays turned with 1,706. And here's one of those defensive metrics for you. Total zone, total fielding, runs above average, 148. Whatever that means, that's a career record. So,
yeah.
Is it fair to say his glove alone was Hall of Fame worthy? Why or why not? I mean, if he didn't hit that home run in 1960, would he still be in the Hall of Fame?
I think absolutely yes. And that's only based on his defensive numbers. I mean, I don't know how you can't I don't think you can just put a guy in the Hall of Fame based on what he does offensively. Defense is part of the game. Fielding is part of the game. And if you're the best of the best, there's no reason why you shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. And he did win another World Series too.
Yeah. he was a part of that 1971 team.
And I'll tell you, Warren, that is, of all the Pirate teams I've ever watched, that is my absolute favorite team all time. Despite them winning it again in '79, which I went to all 3 World Series games in Pittsburgh. And at that time, I was about 18 years old, so I was able to understand it much better than when I was younger. 71 World Series is really when I started watching baseball, and I repeat this story so many times. I remember going up to my father's bedroom. He had the television on, and Roberto Clemente's at the plate. I'd never watched a baseball game before, and he hits a home run to put the Pirates out in front. I was an instant Pirate fan, instant Roberto Clemente fan, and from that point forward, I became a baseball fan. But my next door neighbor came down, knocked on my door, and asked my father, "Can I take your son downtown, watch the celebration?" And downtown we went, and I was just, after that, the rest is history. Just become a lifelong baseball fan. But Clemente was my boyhood hero. I mean, Warren, to this day, it still seems surreal that he's not here. Just can't believe it.
Yeah. I remember when it happened. I was actually in Florida on a family vacation. But yeah, that 71 team, you had Sanguian, Bill Robertson, Dave Cash, of course, Clemente and Willie Stargell, Al Oliver, Gene Alley, Richie Hebner. I mean, it was a great team. But when and of course, Mazeroski was there. Oh yeah, the pitching was great too. I mean, that was Steve Blass right before he
lost control.
Battled, lost control. Doc Ellis, I mean, Bob Booth, Nelson Bryles. It was a fun team, and they beat one of the Orioles team that year.
They had 420-game winners that year.
I'm sorry?
420-game winners that year. And
yeah,
they still lost the World Series.
McAnally, Palmer, and who was the fourth? I could see him.
I know
Mike
you're talking
Cuellar,
about. I can't remember.
Jim Palmer, Dave McAnally, and Pat Dobson. It was Pat Dobson.
There you go.
Those 4 guys each won 20 games. You don't even get 4 20-game winners in all of baseball in a season anymore. Just absolutely crazy. Back to Mazeroski. You know, his offensive numbers, they don't jump off the page. Career 260 hitter, career 138 home runs. I think the most he had in a season was 19 back in 58. And even that great 1960 season, he did hit 273, 11 home runs, 64 RBI. How much do you think the fact that he wasn't a very strong offensive player, how much did that hurt his reputation during his career? And what were his strengths as a hitter?
Yeah, I mean, he's a good contact hitter, and he may not have had these great numbers, but again, everybody's looking at him as like a great defensive second baseman. So, and he had so much talent around him in the lineup all the time. You know, a lot wasn't expected of him because he knew he had great support up and down the lineup. So I really think that, you know, he was a good contact hitter. He had a decent average, and it's just, he had 167 hits in 1967. That's really not bad. 261. His highest average was 283, and that would have been his second year. But lifetime average, 260. It's not shabby. I mean, it's nothing, that terrible. But again, it's his glove. It's all about his glove and his defensive skills.
When we look at the game today and power, exit velocity being so magnified and so crucial in the way the game is played today, would a player like Bill Mazeroski, who again is in the Hall of Fame, a great defensive ball player. Would a player like Bill Mazeroski have been given a shot to even make it to the majors?
That's a good question. And because so much emphasis is on offense these days and solid pitching, and the pitching has been outstanding. I mean, the Pirates right now are just doing really well pitching. But it's interesting work because I just saw something the other day about the 100-mile-an-hour pitchers, because Bubba Chandler of the Pirates went over 100 the other day. They said like 10 years ago, I think it was, maybe there was 20 pitchers in all of baseball that could throw over 100 consistently. Today, there's, I think they said 30. So the pitchers are throwing much harder, and there's more and more of them coming. So baseball is a sport where I don't think too many pitchers back then, prior to the current era, threw that hard. They might have had good curveballs and some decent fastballs and sliders and other trick pitches, but the way they throw fast these days, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, back then, pitchers pitched. Not only did they have a fastball, they had a curveball, they had a changeup, they had a slider. They pitched. They knew how to hit their spots, and it wasn't about throw as hard as you can for 5 or 6 innings and then let the bullpen take over. You had guys like Sandy Koufax and Bob Gibson and Tom Seaver, and even in the later years, all the way up through Greg Maddux. These guys knew how to set you up for games down the line. Today, it's all about getting in there and throwing it as hard as you can. Sure, you have a couple of these young guys who can throw really hard, but they can also shape pitches. Paul Skeens, Nolan McLean, you got guys like that who I like to think are more of a throwback towards what it used to be. But the difference is they too can throw it upwards of 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I like how you term that throwback, because Skeens definitely is a throwback. I mean, he throws stuff that's just uncanny. His pitches can do all kinds of things. It just made me remind me a second ago of Ramon Hernandez. It was on that 71 Pirates team. And I'll never forget it. His specialty pitch was a screwball. And I remember throwing the screwball once, and that ball was just moving all over the place. I said, how did he do that? I mean, it was just the craziest thing, how it went to home plate. Not a straight line. It was doing all kinds of crazy things. And, of course, the batter whiffed on it big time.
Right. And they knew how to set him up. Nolan Ryan had a phenomenal fastball, but it was even better because of his curveball. I mean, it was just, But let's get back to Mazeroski. You said you have very fond and good memories of the 71 series, but let's talk about the 1960 series, which you missed because you just can't have a memory from back then when you were
I was in a baby crib somewhere.
So tell us what, give us an overview. You're like me, a sports historian. Your favorite team is the Pirates. Tell us from a historian's perspective about the 1960 series and just how improbable it was that the Pittsburgh Pirates defeated the New York Yankees.
Yeah, of course, the Yankees. I've done enough research and heard it through the grapevine about that series. And, the Yankees were so heavily favored. I mean, they had such a heavy-duty lineup. And if you look back at the series, all the games the Pirates won were close. All the games they lost, they got clobbered. So the fact that they were able to stretch it to to a 7th game and stay in it was amazing. And then to have the score tied up 9-9 going 9th inning, it was just like an offensive output that 7th game. And they hung around, got it to the bottom of the 9th, and we all know what happened there. Mazeroski over Yogi Berra for the game-winning home run. But, that was a huge upset. I don't think the Yankees were too pleased. They lost to a team they thought they should have annihilated.
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees were as normal, at that time, just a complete powerhouse. They were 97 and 57, and they they dominated the baseball once again with the guys that you just Mantle and Vera and Tony Kubek and Whitey Ford, all those guys. And the Pirates, they won game 1 at home 6-4, and the Yankees came back and beat them 16-3. Then the Yankees won game 3 10-0. And the Pirates squeaked one out 3-2. Then they comfortably won 5-2. Then the Yankees blasted them again in game 6, 12-0. And the Yankees are winning. They've got 9 runs going into the bottom of the 9th. They are 3 outs away from another World Series championship. It was a chaotic game, to say the least. What made Game 7 so chaotic leading up to that final at-bat by Mazeroski?
Well, I mean, everybody figured, the Yankees have been clobbering us all along with the games they won, and they're probably going to find a way to win this last one. So, I mean, everybody was in disbelief that we're still in it, 9th inning. And, of course, when he hits the home run, everybody goes crazy. And if you watch the film, he had to make his way around the bases and somehow get the home plate because he was being mobbed. But, yeah, it's a shocking one. And I guess in some ways this was their revenge for 1927 because the Pirates played the Yankees in 1927 after winning the World Series 2 years earlier in 25. They're back in the World Series. But now they're facing, as we all know, Murderers Row. Now you're talking about a lineup that was just incredible. And, of course, the Pirates got swept in 4 games. They didn't stand a chance. So they probably looked at this series as well. Here we are, 33 years later, and we're going to get our revenge on the Yankees, the mighty Yankees.
Well, what people don't recall, we all look at Mazeroski's home run, but the Pirates had to stage a furious comeback to even put Maz into that situation. The Yankees had scored 2 in the top of the 8th to go up 7-4, and then the Pirates scored 5 runs in the bottom of the 8th to take a 9-7 lead. And then the Yankees come back in the 9th and tie the game 9-9. And then Mazeroski comes up in the bottom of the 9th. Can you take us through his at-bat?
Well, poor Ralph Terry happened to be the one that threw up the home run pitch. And I don't think he thought that he was going to be hitting a home run. I think he was like, let's just get a rally started here and try to get the winning run on base. And he got the best of that ball, and it went over the wall, Forbes Field, and I think he probably found himself in a little disbelief as well that he actually hit it over the wall. You watch the replay, you can see Yogi Berra just looking up, going, "Oh my, we just lost." So yeah, it was wild. And I wish I would have been older so I could have actually witnessed that.
Yeah, it's every kid that plays baseball dreams of coming up in the bottom of the 9th inning in the 7th game of the World Series and knocking one out to win it all. And Mazeroski did it. The closest thing I can remember in modern times, and it's just not the same, was Joe Carter,
right,
with the Blue Jays. Because I actually found
I actually found a quote from Mazeroski about that home run, and what he said was, I was almost at second base when the ball finally went over. And he said he was running so hard just trying to make sure to get to third base. And then he took a moment to realize what had actually happened, and it was gone. And he said he finished the sprint around the bases like he said he was a schoolboy. And, of course, we know what happened when he got to home plate. He was mobbed. And he says, all I could think about was we beat the Yankees. We beat them. We beat the damn Yankees. So, yeah, it must have been some kind of
deal.
feeling.
Yeah, I mean, the Pirates won. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, here's another bit of trivia that I found because maybe some people are wondering whatever happened to the ball itself. Well, I found it on Wikipedia. A gentleman by the name of Andy Jerpy. He was only 14 years old at the time. He was standing outside the stadium in Shenley Park, and he was underneath some trees that were adjacent to the ballpark. So he just happened to be standing there, and the ball comes down. And the Mazeroski, he actually took the ball to Bill Mazeroski because he had heard. Well, actually, the guy said to himself, he goes, "Oh, somebody just hit a home run." I mean, he must have known the World Series was going on, but so he found a way to get to Mazeroski, and Maz signed the ball for him. But he told him to keep it. He said, "Your memory's good enough for me," said Mazeroski. But unfortunately, the keepsake apparently was lost during a neighborhood game. The guy used it in a neighborhood ball game. Why, I don't know. But he misplaced the ball playing around with it. It's almost like the movie Sandlot. They
I
lost
was just
the Babe
thinking the
Ruth
same
ball.
thing. The Babe Ruth, the Babe Ruth ball that they hit over the fence from James Earl Jones. Oh, you mean George?
Oh my gosh, this kid probably didn't realize that in today's day and age, if he had that ball and you go watch Antiques Roadshow, you put it on there, it'd probably be worth $100,000, $200,000. Easy.
A couple bucks for sure.
Yeah.
Again, baseball was so different back then. I think camaraderie amongst teammates was a lot closer than it is today. What kind of teammate was Bill Mazeroski in the Pirates clubhouse?
Oh my gosh. The Pirates historically have had close teams, especially in the 70s. They loved him. And, of course, with Roberto Clemente in the clubhouse, everybody loved him. And he's, my God, in Pittsburgh, he's a hero, and people love him to this day. Willie Stargell was just the kindest gentleman you ever want to meet. It was just like that with the Pirates. And I always like to say, being a historian and growing up in the 70s in Pittsburgh, I always say the 70s was the best era to ever grow up in. I mean, especially in Pittsburgh, all the sports teams were great. And I remember going to Three River Stadium, and they used to allow you to walk down the first baseline before the games when they were warming up. And these players would come over and greet you and give you a ball, and you don't see that anymore. And it's unfortunate. Kids these days don't get to experience some of the things we did when we go to ball games.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's a different game. Maz sometimes is described or was described as very quiet and humble. How did that affect his perception nationally? How was he perceived on a national stage?
Well, I think he was very well respected. I mean, anybody that loves the game could see how he played the game, and I think he was respected in that sense. And he was a low-key kind of guy. And, a lot of the players on the Pirates were very low-key, Roberto Clemente especially. Now, we talk about him, and he did not like the spotlight. He did not want to be out in the spotlight. He didn't want people, surrounding him and interviewing, but all the time, he was like one of the greatest humanitarians you'll ever find in baseball. So I think that just carried around the clubhouse between those teams between 1960 and 1971, 72. That's the way they were. Manny Sanguillen, oh my gosh, he was such a great guy. He's so funny, always smiling. He's like the Heinz Ward of baseball, always smiling. And he was a part of that too. And, they don't. A lot of Pittsburgh, I mean, their reputation, Pittsburgh athletes, they don't want to be in the spotlight. And they kind of stray away from it, even to this day. So I think they've always been a kind of low-key franchises.
Do you think if Mazeroski was on the Yankees, if he was on the Dodgers or the Cardinals or the Cubs, the Red Sox, do you think his reputation would be, his notoriety would be larger, especially based off of hitting that home run in 1960? Do you think his reputation would be larger than it is today, now?
Would be larger than it is today. Perhaps. I mean, if you go to play for a larger metropolitan team like the Yankees, you're going to be in the spotlight whether you like it or not. He wouldn't have been able to be low key. Small market teams like Pittsburgh and Kansas City, you don't get the notoriety that you do in some of the bigger cities. So I don't know how he would have handled that, because he would have been thrust into the spotlight whether you liked it or not.
I was going to ask you, do you think playing in Pittsburgh benefited a player like Mazeroski as opposed to playing on a grander stage? And that's not a slight against Pittsburgh. It's just, you said, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, the spotlight is much more magnified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, as we mentioned before, he had been offered tryouts with other major league teams, but he chose the Pirates because they wanted to advance him through the minor leagues as quickly as possible. It gave him the best opportunity. And maybe it was just a stroke of luck that that's what worked in his favor, as by being in Pittsburgh, where he was very comfortable.
His induction into the Hall of Fame has been debated by many over the years. If you take away that home run, which brought him incredible notoriety, it certainly upped his reputation in the game because of what he did, despite how great a defensive ball player he was. Do you think if he doesn't hit that home run, he doesn't get into the Hall of Fame?
No, I think he definitely gets into the Hall of Fame based on defensive skills. Now, it's interesting you asked that, because I just wrote an article. I write for a website called Abstract Sports. I just wrote an article recently because I was looking at some of the Hall of Famers that just got voted in. And for the past, I don't know how many years, I haven't completely agreed with some of these guys getting into the Hall of Fame based on why they're getting in, based on their numbers.
What was it like? Yeah, it was like a couple of years back. I don't think anybody got into the Hall of Fame, and there's this thing. Well, we've got to get some people in, and they have this veterans. Not even the veterans. It's guys that were passed up, and they get one last shot. And I've always argued, and I was very happy to see it, that Gil Hodges was placed in the Hall of Fame, and I thought that he was very deserving of it. I don't think Harold Baines is a Hall of Fame baseball player.
No.
He was a great
Absolutely
baseball player, a Hall of Famer. So I'd like to hear your opinion on some.
No, absolutely. And then what I did within this article was, just out of curiosity, I took the last 5 years of Hall of Fame and people that got voted into the Hall of Fame for the past 5 years. Then I took the first 5 years of inductions and compared the two. And just based on names alone, it's almost laughable. Because, I mean, you got guys like Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig going in, and Walter Johnson and Cy Young and Christy Mathewson, who were just unbelievable players, incredible players. And then you put them up against the names like Harold Baines. I'm like, come on now.
Yeah.
There's no comparison.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. So
yeah,
I don't. I mean, it shouldn't be about just let's get somebody in, and they're doing it in football too. I mean, there's guys in the Hall of Fame football don't belong there either. But I hear what you're saying, and I really think it's got to be based on what you've done on the field and how great of a player you were, and not just all about numbers, but what you accomplished. Also. I mean, you can play baseball for 20 years and be a .330 hitter, but that doesn't mean you're one of the greatest ever.
Mm-hmm. What about, let me put you on the spot this way.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your strongest argument for not putting Mazeroski in the Hall of Fame when you go back to the early days and you reel off the names that you did? What would be the argument against putting Mazeroski in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, that's a tough call because obviously he's nowhere near the offensive. He doesn't have the offensive production some of these guys had. So it's a tough philosophical question. Do you put a guy in because he's defensive, like he's an outstanding Golden Glove defensive player, and ignore what he did at the plate? It's tough, And I mean, I'm glad he's in, but really, if you think about the early guys, obviously Mazeroski wouldn't belong either. So it's really tough to say, but I don't know if it's bias talking because he's a Pirate, but because then you mentioned Harold Baines, and Harold Baines obviously way better offensive player than Mazeroski, and he's in the Hall of Fame, but does he really belong there? Can you? I think what I did when I wrote that article is I just asked the question to myself: is if you spit out the name, does the first thing you think of, wow, great player? And then you say, yeah, well, then he's probably in the Hall of Fame. Now, everybody knows who Babe Ruth is. You can't deny that. Some younger people probably have no idea who Walter Johnson is, but God, he was a great pitcher. Christy Matheson, fantastic pitcher. Cy Young, obviously, we have the award named after him. He still is the leader in all-time wins. But
always will be. No one's going to get 511 wins.
No, and it's funny you mentioned that because I think I wrote an article a couple of years ago too about how pitching has changed. And if you look at the complete game records, the shutout records, they're never going to be touched because they don't allow the pitchers to go past 5 or 6 innings anymore. So you're never going to have a complete game by one pitcher.
Nolan Ryan's 7 no-hitters. 300. Yeah, no one's going to ever lose 315 games like Cy Young did. You just don't pitch.
Exactly.
Some of these guys might not make 315 starts in their career.
Right. Exactly. And you think about records that just will never be broken. I mean, those pitching numbers are never going to be touched. It's impossible. And you think about what Nolan Ryan did. I always just shake my head going in disbelief that this guy threw 7 no-hitters. That's unheard of. Nobody's ever going to do that because they can't get to a complete game anyway.
Yeah, and then the one-hitters, and I think he has an incredible amount of one-hitters and two-hitters as well.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you think, you mentioned Joe Morgan, and, you got from even more recent times, guys like Ryne Sandberg. Where does Mazeroski, in your mind, rank among the greatest second basemen in baseball history?
As biased as I might be, Warren, I can't say that he would be one of the greatest second basemen. It's not possible because you have to think about an all-around player. And Joe Morgan had a bat. He could hit. And he was a great defensive second baseman as well. And so it's just hard to say, put him in that class of people. Ryne Sandberg, a great hitter. Now, I wouldn't say he is as good as a defensive player. But you really got to think of all-around players. Are they all-around great player? And that's what makes Ohtani so special. Because not only can this guy pitch, he can hit. I mean, it's crazy. He's like a once-in-a-lifetime player. He's like a Babe Ruth reborn. You're not going to see players like that. So when you consider things like that, you got to consider, I think, all-around player. So if you take into consideration everything about the guy, who's the better player? And I can't put him as the best second baseman of all time. That's not possible.
Is he a top 10 second baseman of all time in your mind?
I'd have to think about how many second basemen I can think of, but Ryne Sandberg and Joe Morgan right off the bat are above him. So I'd say he'd rival the top 10, if not in the top 10.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Has his legacy changed over time as analytics have reshaped how we evaluate players? How do you think his legacy is viewed today as opposed to what it was back in the day?
Well, I mean, I think his reputation is set in stone for what he accomplished, what he meant to Pittsburgh. As a matter of fact, I think home plate, they saved it and put it somewhere. I know a portion of Forbes Field wall where he hit the home run is still on display over there in Oakland somewhere. But yeah, evaluations have changed. I mean, right now the Pirates have this kid, Connor Griffin, who's supposed to be the next great superstar, but he's struggling at the plate. And I keep watching game after game saying, how long are they going to let this kid stay in the majors if he doesn't start hitting? But he's a great defensive player. So, the evaluation, I think they give more rope these days than they did back then. It's hard to make the major leagues back then, and it's still hard today, but I think they give them a little more breathing room coming up.
When we talk about Pittsburgh sports, we think of Clemente. We think of Willie Stargell. We think of Mario Lemieux, Sidney Crosby, Franco, Bradshaw.
Oh, yeah.
And in more recent times,
They can't leave out Art Rooney Sr.
And Roethlisberger. Yeah,
The owner of Steelers.
There's some very legendary names in Pittsburgh sports history.
Absolutely.
Where is Mazeroski on that list?
Oh my gosh, he's right there up with the rest of them. I mean, he's a hero. Just because of one swing of the bat, that helped him a lot. But I think he would have been loved and beloved in Pittsburgh, regardless of that home run or not, because he spent his whole career in Pittsburgh. He never played for anybody else. He stayed in Pittsburgh afterwards. He became an announcer with them. I mean, he loved the city. The city loved him.
To someone that's not from Pittsburgh, that hasn't been to Pittsburgh, that is devoted to their own team and doesn't pay attention to the great history of some of baseball's older players, how would you describe Bill Mazeroski to them, or to a younger fan in one sentence? What would you say? How would you describe Bill Mazeroski, the importance of him to the city of Pittsburgh and to the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Yeah. Well, again, being a lifelong Pirate, never played for anybody else. And I've never met him, but I know my mother met him. An extreme gentleman. Nicest guy you ever want to meet. And he has that reputation. You don't have to meet him. He carries that reputation around the city. People know him by listening to him on the radio or whatever else. They know what he's all about. So, yeah, he's so well respected in Pittsburgh. And his reputation speaks for itself. And when you're an athlete in Pittsburgh and you've had a Hall of Fame career, even if you're a superstar, the city embraces you. And even if you leave the city sometimes, like Andrew McCutchen has, he's been there, left, came back, left again, they still love him. And he's just a fan favorite in Pittsburgh, whether he's playing for us or not. Pittsburgh embraces their beloved athletes. Franco is a good one. And when I mentioned Art Rooney Sr., owner of the Steelers for the longest time, I always say that you see him on television, you know what he's all about. And even if you've never met him, it's like you sit at home and you go, God, I feel like he's like my grandfather or something. You almost feel like you know him. And that's what he gives out. You see him, when you hear him, everybody loved this guy to death. Just a great, great guy. And one of the most beloved owners in the National Football League when he was alive. So, yeah, they embrace their athletes.
Put you on the spot again. 1960, one of the greatest moments in baseball history, and certainly the greatest moment in Mazeroski's baseball career. Are there any other moments that you are aware of during Mazeroski's career that deserves to be spoken about?
None that really stand out like that. I mean, nothing's going to top that. There's no question. There's nothing that could top that. But the fact that he's a two-time World Series winner, and he played very well in the 1971 World Series, And he was at the tail end of his career. So was Gene Alley. So those two had been a double play combination for years. So it was kind of like the twilight of their career, and it was a good way to go out. But really nothing else stands out. But it was funny because the other day I was thinking about this interview we were doing, and I'm thinking to myself, like you said, Mazeroski's home run is historic, not just in Pittsburgh, but worldwide. Does it rival the Immaculate Reception? Which one's bigger? And I was saying to myself, God, that's tough. That's really tough.
What is bigger in Pittsburgh?
Well, I'll tell you, Mazeroski probably gets the edge because he won a championship. Franco's play only got them to advance in the playoffs, and they eventually lost the next week to the undefeated Miami Dolphins. So, but it was the first time the Steelers had ever been in the playoffs. So they won their very first playoff game on a crazy play that the Oakland, Los Angeles, Las Vegas Raiders to this day will tell you that was an illegal play. And Frenchie Fuqua, who apparently they say the ball hit off of, to this day will not reveal what happened. He said he's taking it to his grave. But he'll always joke because he'll go and give public speeches and he'll say, well, I'm going to tell you who that ball really deflected off of at the end of the speech. And he gets to the end of the speech and says, I was only kidding. So we don't know.
But Maz's home run is probably the greatest singular moment in the history of Pittsburgh sports.
Oh, yeah, it is. I mean, Franco's right up there, but if that would have been for a championship, then it would have definitely probably topped it or been equal to it. But it was only a playoff game that just got them one round further, which they eventually lost in the next round anyway. And here's an interesting thing, Warren, is that Immaculate Reception, I know we're talking about baseball and Mazeroski, but that Immaculate Reception, they had a rule back then, you may recall it, that if your game did not sell out in your own city, you were not allowed to televise it.
Yeah.
So the Oakland Raider game with Pittsburgh in 72 was not televised. So as a 12-year-old, I was standing in my driveway in the winter listening to it on the radio. That's how I heard the Immaculate Reception. Was not able to see it. But my father was at the game. He was at the game, and Art Rooney had left the field because he thought the game was over. He was going in the locker room to congratulate his players. He never saw the play either. And Bradshaw didn't see it because he was on his back. But my father said somebody in front of him was eating food and got so excited he threw up in the air and it fell all over my father's lap and everything. Everybody was going crazy.
Wow. Well, the other thing at the time, when Mazeroski hit that home run, Pittsburgh was a baseball town.
Yes, absolutely.
It was a baseball town in 1960.
Absolutely.
So, hey, Harv, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your evening and joining me on Sports Forgotten Heroes. I love going down memory lane, and Bill Mazeroski is certainly, he fits the profile of Sports Forgotten Heroes, guys who had great careers but might have been overshadowed by somebody just a little bit greater, or had one great game, one great play, and that is Bill Mazeroski, and he's a Hall of Famer. Harv, thanks again for joining me on Sports Forgotten Heroes.
I appreciate you having me, Warren. It was a lot of fun. And I'm a history buff, so it was a lot of fun going down history lane, for sure.
Awesome. We'll have to do it again.
Absolutely. I'm ready whenever you are.
For his career, Mazeroski hit .260 with 138 home runs and 853 RBI. In the 1960 World Series, he hit .320 with 2 home runs and 5 RBI. He also appeared in one playoff game for the Pirates in 1970, played in 2 games in Pittsburgh's run to the 1971 World Series, and another 2 in the 1972 playoffs. But it was his glove where he made a huge difference. In fact, in the postseason, he had a perfect fielding percentage, not making an error in 44 chances. Thanks again to my guest today, Harv Aronson, and thanks to all of you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on Sports Forgotten Heroes.
Gridiron Japan!
Hello, Sports History Network listeners. I'm Greg St. James, and I'm inviting you to take a journey with me across the Pacific
with Gridiron Japan Radio. I'm joined by a powerhouse team to bring you the best of football here in the land of the rising sun. We've got John Gunning of Inside Sport Japan and the Japan Times, Star International and ex-League quarterback Aaron Ellis, and we're thrilled to welcome the new duo from the newly relaunched From the 55-Yard Line podcast, which is now Gridiron America Radio, co-host Dave Selinsky and Mike Tackett. We cover the Japanese X-League as well as the college game and interview the players and coaches who are making a splash here on the far side of the world. Subscribe today and help us celebrate the global game.